Oh, hello. In today's episode of Kill Team Shout Thoughts, we're going to discuss the possibility of getting Terminators in Kill Team. So why are we talking about Terminators all of a sudden? Well, a couple of days ago I did a rumour roundup video. There's a link in the description. I didn't actually talk about Terminators in that video at all, really. This is something that's come to me later. I talked about the Valrak rumour. The next box will be Grey Knights versus Khorne, and Valrak hasn't shed any more detail than that. Now, while I do believe that will be the next box, everything that follows herein is my speculation. We could easily be on the, and most people have assumed, right, because that's what the Compendium team was in the previous edition, that we'd be getting power armoured Grey Knights versus something for Khorne. Maybe Khorne worshipping mortals is what I postulated in the video, maybe kind of demonically possessed mortals. But later I got to talking to Zimbad, and we got to thinking, what's the most iconic Grey Knights unit? It's Grey Knight Terminators. For all of 2nd edition 40k, Grey Knight Terminators were the only kind of Grey Knights that you could have. What World Eater players want added to their codex, most of all, when you ask them, they want Khorne Terminators. They want the Khorne answer to the Scarab Occult Terminators, to the Death Shroud. They want Khorne Terminators. A second, separate Valrak rumour was that Kill Team Space Hulk is on the cards. If they do that, if they re-release Space Hulk and they have Kill Team rules for the models in the box, that means surely Blood Angels Terminators. So that's 3 possible choices that we could get Terminators coming to Kill Team, and I don't think it's impossible. Like, I don't want to build your hopes up too much with what is essentially speculation, informed speculation, but speculation. We could get 3 Terminator teams quite close to each other. That's possible, right? And that's exciting, right? That's a whole new archetype of team being added to this game that we love. You know, you can talk about Space Marine teams, you can talk about Eldar teams, you can talk about human teams, and then we'd be able to talk coherently about Terminator teams. So what does a Terminator team potentially look like? Well, let's look at 40k. So in 40k, we have heavy intercessors. They have a 5-inch move, toughness 6, a 3+ save, 3 wounds, and an armor save buff when they're holding an objective. And in Kill Team, we have heavy intercessors. Well, we have a heavy intercessor anyway. In the Angels of Death team, the heavy bolter heavy intercessor, I know that nobody uses him. He has a 4-inch move, okay. He has a 3+ save, and he has 18 wounds. Now, in 40k, we have Terminators with a 5-inch move, toughness 5, a 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable, and 3 wounds. So, the same move in 40k as heavy intercessors, 1 point less toughness in 40k than heavy intercessors, a better save than heavy intercessors, and the same number of wounds. So, I feel like the natural place for Terminators to land in Kill Team would be a 4-inch move, just like the Kill Team Heavy Intercessors have, right? 16 wounds, so more wounds than a normal Space Marine on 14, but less wounds than the 18 that a Heavy Intercessor has, with that 2+ save. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments. Now, we can't ignore the invulnerable save, and that's where things get a little bit awkward. I wouldn't want them to hand-wave away the Terminator's invulnerable save. The Crux Terminators having a sliver of the Emperor's armour, conferring that invulnerable save, is a key part of the sort of very traditional lore for Terminators. One of my favourite bits of lore, because I like it when in 40k it's like, oh, this might be because of Emperor magic, but it might be because of technology hidden in the Crux Terminators generating a force field, and we're not going to tell you. I like that. I like when 40k does the, maybe this is faith in the Imperium, maybe it's a sophisticated relic of technology we're not letting on. I like that a lot. But hey, that's just my preferences when it comes to the lore. Now, Kill Team 24 has a massive issue with invulnerable saves. Invulnerable save is not a piece of rules terminology in Kill Team 24. If you've only played Kill Team 24, then you've got no idea what I'm talking about. An invulnerable save, traditionally, or if you come from the fantasy side of things, a ward save, right, is a save that's not affected by armor piercing, right, or save modifiers if you want to use the really old school lingo. In other words, it's a save that you always get on its full characteristic, no matter what your enemy is doing to you. Leaving aside the fact that 40k at various points has got into this weird arms race where you then have some guns that ignore invulnerable saves and blah 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 blah. But historically, your invulnerable or ward saves could not be changed or removed from you, right? Now, Kill Team used to have this content in the previous edition. It doesn't anymore, okay? The designers have decided that what we're going to have is one save value for every single unit and then ignores piercing. Some teams just get ignores piercing natively, like the Harlequins. Some teams get ignores piercing on a ploy, like the Legionaries or the Thousand Sons, and some teams get ignores piercing predicated on something else, like the Brood Brothers when they take the Magus and the Magus is alive. But in all cases in the current edition of Kill Team, ignores piercing just makes your regular save into what we would previously have called an invulnerable save. I think this is bad. You'll notice that of those 4 teams I mentioned, 2 of them are considered extremely problematic, and one of them, the Harlequins, is still pretty strong. You know, there was a Harlequins team in top 8 at Worlds. So I don't understand why they've decided that we're not allowed to have the kind of situation where you have a save on a 2-up or a 3-up that's vulnerable to piercing, and separately a save that's not vulnerable to piercing on a 4 or a 5-up. To me, that seems like a really good piece of classic Games Workshop game design. So that, you know, if you're being shot with a melter gun that has a piercing 2, you may decide, like, okay, go run. I could take my 2-up save on 1 dice, or I could take a 4-up save on 3 dice, right? And you'd probably aim for the 3-ups for the 3 dice getting 4-ups. But if you're shot by a weapon with piercing 1, you might opt for the 2 dice on 2-ups, unless you absolutely needed to save every single of the 3 hits to survive. Then you might try and roll the hard 6s, you know, or the hard 4-ups across 3 dice. Don't forget that you'd be deciding which save to roll, knowing how many saves you had to make. You'd know how many hits your opponent had rolled. I think that's a good piece of game design. Maybe Games Workshop thinks it slows the game down too much. The trouble is, we have various teams, chiefly the Thousand Sons, who, similar to Terminators, them having an invulnerable save is absolutely core to their lore and their rules. Traditionally, Thousand Sons had a 2-up save and a 5-up invulnerable, which seems to have weirdly translated to a 2-up save and a 2-up invulnerable when you play a ploy that you can play every turn. Problematic. So, I would like Games Workshop to review this idea, this piece of rules design, and I'd like them to bring back the idea of an invulnerable save that is a separate optional save that's less likely to pass, but that can't be modified, because I think that's really what you'd have to have in the game to represent Terminators well without them being broken. Now, if Games Workshop is married to this idea that we have to have ignores piercing, then I guess you give them a once per game ability or equipment probably, which would give the whole team ignores piercing, or one model ignores piercing, or, you know, put it on a ploy and let them have 2-up ignores piercing just whenever they spend a CP, because, hey, it wasn't problematic for the Thousand Sons. But I think that's something that they could do, they could fix, if they just had the will to abandon one of their design changes of the new edition. So putting it all together, we're left with something that has a move of 4, 16 wounds, 3 APL of course, I didn't mention that before, a 2-up save, and I would say a 4-up save that ignores piercing. You could make it a 5-up save. It used to be a 5-up save for a long time, and the Storm Shields gave you the 4-up save. These days they've decided that all Terminators have a 4-up save, and the Storm Shields give you extra wounds. You could take it either way. I think it would be a balanced thing as to whether you gave them a 4 or 5 up invulnerable. I think doing either feels good. It feels like Terminators should. And then your basic Terminator is going to have a Power Fist. We know what a Power Fist is. 5 attacks hitting on 4s, 5/7 brutal, because of course they'd have that hidden weapon skill stat of a 3 and Power Fist to bring that hidden -1 to hit. And then the Billy basic Terminator, in your Blood Angels Space Hulk team, for example, would have a Storm Bolter. I imagine this would be a Bolter with Relentless, so 4 dice hitting on 3s, 3/4. And then, of course, you've got your specific teams, whether it's the Blood Angels team, the Grey Knights team, or the World Eaters team, would have their own ploys and equipment and team special rules and specialists and different weapons. So you can imagine the Grey Knights would all have better melee weapons. They'd have Nemesis Force weapons. You'd imagine that the Blood Angels would have the classic stuff, so maybe a Thunderhammer Storm Shield guy, maybe an Assault Cannon guy, maybe a Heavy Flamer guy, and then the Word Bearer Terminators would have a lot of Chain Fists, maybe some Lightning Claws, not Word Bearers, World Eaters. But that's basically my fab plan. Now, do you think at 5 models that could be balanced? I think... Obviously, really hard to be doing this video in the state we're in, where we haven't seen the balanced data slate, so we don't know how those currently quite problematic Marine teams are going to change, if they're going to change, because we're trying to slot these in as a new class of team that's slightly more elite than the Marines, but with less models. Obviously, if they decide to take all, I don't think they will, but if they decide to take all the Marine teams down to 5 models, then this kind of thing is null and void. But assuming those Marine teams stay at 6 miniatures, which I kind of hope that they do, that leaves a gap for Terminators to go to 5, and I'm sure Games Workshop would really like that, because whereas Intercessors are sold in boxes of 10, so putting a box of 10 into a box and saying you get to use 6 is cool. Terminators have always been sold in boxes of 5, okay? Now, so they wouldn't want to have to put 2 boxes of Terminators in the big box, right? They would want to be able to put 1 box in and have that be a usable team. So I think 5 is a very seductive number for Games Workshop, because that's the number they'd want to put in the value box there as well. So could that work? I think it probably could, but again, I'm not the best kill team player in the universe. You can read this, take a view, let me know what you think. And that's really it. So a shorter video from me today. Now, do you think we will actually get these teams? Do you think we'll get 1, 2, or even 3 Terminator kill teams? Or am I dreaming? Is it something that they're never going to do to kill team? A separate question, if you can separate the two in your mind, do you want Terminators? Do you think they'd be cool if they were similar to how I've just sketched out? Or do you think they'd exasperate the current balance problems, favouring more elite teams to add a sort of super elite category of team? Do you agree with my assumptions? Maybe you think that I've calculated the wounds wrong and you wouldn't give them 16, you'd give them 14 or 18 or 15 or 17 or something like that. Let me know your reasoning and logic down below for that as well. And that really is it from me today. So yeah, like I say, a shorter one, but still hopefully enjoyable for you. Do subscribe, comment, like, consider joining the Discord, link in the description. And then there's just time left for me to thank my members, the people that pay money every month, especially Nightfall and Samtroth, who are both subscribed at the highest tier and therefore make a fairly reasonable contribution every month to the running of the channel. Thank you, gentlemen. Alright folks, I'll see you again on Saturday. I'm aiming to do one of my faction reviews. Haven't decided what faction, but we'll see what I feel like when I get up at the weekend. Alright guys, until then, cheery cheery bye, bye bye, bye 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 bye.